one size doesn't fit all, but there are certain principles that you've got to dig into and get down to the nitty gritty of actually valuing people and being willing to include them and put that ego aside.
Welcome back. I'm TD Smyers, and this is No Cliches. Hello and welcome to No Cliches, companion podcast to my coaching, consulting, and leadership writing at A Bold Leader. I'm TD Smyers, and I've been in leadership my whole life, from taking point in small teams to command of military troops to multiple roles as a CEO. And if this life in leadership has taught me anything, it's that leading is more art than science. I call this No Cliches because we'll go well beyond the basics here, leaving behind the LinkedIn infographics to dive headfirst into some of the toughest situations a leader can face. Through stories and interviews, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look at leadership truths that always apply, no matter what industry or sector you're in. This is a no-holds-barred leadership conversation, so strap in. The Dallas Cowboys don't play football in Dallas. They play in Arlington, the same city where the 2023 World Series champions, the Texas Rangers, play baseball. None of that happened by accident. Behind Arlington's rise as a world-class hub for sports, entertainment, and innovation is a visionary leader who built unity into the city's blueprint. Former Mayor Jeff Williams turned collaboration into a superpower, and now he's sharing that formula in his new book, The Unity Blueprint. Today on No Cliches, we're talking with the man who proved what's possible when a community pulls together. Let's go into the studio to talk with Mayor Williams now. Mayor Williams, it's really an honor to have you on No Cliches. Welcome to the show.
TD, great to be here with you.
You took office at the same time I moved from the Red Cross to United Way. So you're a much more important guy in Tarrant County, but I felt like our paths kind of paralleled a little bit.
I remember a really fun time when you came into my office to tell me you were moving from Red Cross to United Way and how excited you were and how excited I was.
Yeah, it was a big move for me. One of the big things we're going to talk about is your new book, The Unity Blueprint. And, working now as an executive coach, the focus on unity, or what needs to be a focus on unity among executive level leadership, is something that I'm always working with clients on. It is a great book. Congratulations on putting it all together.
Well, thank you, TD. And isn't it interesting how important unity really is? And it makes all the difference in the opportunity for success, but also even for the side effects of forging friendships and getting things done quicker and being more productive.
One of the neatest things is you illustrate how to achieve unity. It's called the Unity Blueprint, of course, so I guess you kind of expect that from an engineer. You're going to get some practical applications about how to do it. And you don't just throw the recommendations or the advice out there. It all has stories that go with it. And this show's called No Cliches because I try to bring really kind of the heart and soul and sometimes the dark, dirty stuff of leadership into the conversation because it's hard work. And you talk about that. But in your introduction, you refer to the nitty-gritty aspects of building coalitions as central to unity. And I think leadership is more art than science. I call it the gritty art because sometimes it is hard.
It certainly is, TD, and it's because it's dealing with people, and all people are different, and so one size doesn't fit all. But there are certain principles that you've got to dig into and get down to the nitty gritty of actually valuing people and being willing to include them and put that ego aside.
Yeah, you have a lot of great stories in your book. But one that really jumped out at me, and I scribbled down notes on it, was one of your best ideas, one of the best ideas that you executed. You said came from a fifth grader, and it had to do with potholes.
Yeah, it's very interesting, TD. Our chamber has works with the school district, and they asked for ideas from our elementary school of how to help our city. And this particular one, this fifth grader came in and said that here at our General Motors plant, where they manufacture a lot of vehicles, he said they ought to put a sensor on each one of the vehicles that would move your car away from potholes, but also would send out a GPS signal straight to the mayor's office of where that pothole is so he'd get it repaired. Well, after I got through laughing about that, I suddenly realized that, he's onto something here
Yeah.
because we carry around a GPS locator everywhere we're at, and that's our phone. And so I went to our staff and asked them to develop an app so that we would have an opportunity for when some of our citizens saw a pothole, they could literally just push the button on the app and send it directly to not the mayor's office, but the street department. And so the really cool thing about that was too that I formed 2 pothole repair crews that go out every day, and we put all kinds of decals and everything. I wanted everybody to know who they were, and these guys really took pride in their jobs. And then it's one of the basic things in city services is that if a citizen sees the same pothole month after month, there's nothing more demoralizing. However, if they see it get it repaired in 1 or 2 days, then man, it not only helps them, but it helps that road. The road will actually have its life extended because of that. So the point being that you never know where great ideas are going to come from, and very beholding to that 5th grader, but I've seen it time and time again when you involve people. It's amazing where great ideas may come from.
That 5th grader, I don't know where he or she is right now, but I hope they know that they inspired that app and that improvement in Arlington. Do they know that?
Yes, they do. And they absolutely do.
That's cool. So, well, I mean, there's a lesson learned there. Obviously, you've told a great lesson in civic improvement. But here's the mayor of a major happening city with a lot going on. And you didn't dismiss something you heard. You were amused by it, but then you thought about it. You let that sink in, and one of your constituents, a young one, but a constituent, had an idea that improved the area. And when you talk about forging unity, you talk about listening to people, and not just in giving them an ear, but in letting it sink in and making the plan our plan and not my plan. That seems to be a central part of your unity blueprint.
TD, you really hit on some great principles there, and it begins with being willing to listen to people and not listen to speak to them, but listen to understand what they're truly saying and thinking about, okay, well, how can that fit into our plans? And when you allow them to be a part of your plans, magic happens. People get involved. They're willing to help make it happen because it changes from my plan to our plan. And that is so important there to be able to do that. And that is kind of one of the basic principles, too, that a leader has to have. You've got to be able to value people and also be willing to understand that you aren't always the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah. In my case, I virtually never am, but I do cling on to that concept of, hey, together we can be much better than we are individually. And I love in the book how you say, hey, listen, there's a lot of people that think elected officials do this for ego and for self-advancement. But really, if you're not at the national level, that's not what happens here. This can be a butt whipping. And it is all about service. But your migration to your Unity Council in Arlington, it kind of began, it had roots in your kindness campaign, right? You had established this kindness campaign, and the roots of that led into your establishment of a Unity Council that was a pivotal part of your mayorship.
It really was. I think it's so important to be able to work with the people you're with. And it's that way in business. And of course, I've owned an engineering firm for a long time now, and we have to work in teams to be successful. And then yet, if your teams aren't getting along with each other, there's a problem. And so actually putting on the minds of people to be kind and to respect, it started in my business. We have people from other countries that work for us and so forth. We don't look like each other. We don't even have the same native tongue. However, when you have on your mind that, hey, I want to be kind to this person, and you're also working on a common purpose that you care about, then suddenly friendships are forged because walls are broken down because you are more focused on making sure that you achieve the goal. And so I came in with a kindness campaign. I'd seen other cities do it, But I felt like it was essential in Arlington because we were the 11th most diverse city in America. And we had people from all over the world coming here because we had a university that recruited international students. Well, after they went to school, they stayed here. And so it's not natural many times to walk up to somebody that doesn't look like you, say hello. And well, I thought it was critical that we really empower our citizens and let them know why it was so important to be kind. And we started in the schools, and much to our surprise, the schools had already started a program. We just amped it up and then, of course, spread it to our adults. And I think many times our kids teach us more than we teach them. But it really caught on, and it's still going on in the schools. In fact, I just went into a elementary school this last week, and they still have their kindness club that they're doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, and as I'm listening to you describe it, it's obvious that there's a lot of just good, common sense, solid traits that are going into your perspective, your advancing of kindness, and your understanding of the importance of unity, and then your concrete steps to achieve it. I think for some people, they can listen like there's some kind of a fantastical definition of unity. But in your book, you pointed out that unity is not universal agreement, right? Unity, as you pointed out in the book again, has its roots in transparency and respect. But it's not everybody getting together and singing Kumbaya, is it?
No, it's definitely not. And really, TD, you definitely know it, having in your military service, is that for people to truly be motivated and inspired by their leaders, they've got to trust them. And then they also need to know that their leader values them. And this is kind of a beginning foundation, but I encourage people, regardless of how young or old they are, to sit back and think about what are the character values that I want to adopt? What are the core values that I want to adopt in my life so I can be successful in achieving the goals? And if you want to be a leader, it starts with being a person of integrity and a person that values people and respects them.
You got a whole section in your book toward the end that kind of outlines your personal core values and the core values that have underlined the work that you talked about in the book. And there are many great ones, but one of them that really resonated with me was authenticity. How important is authenticity to the work of a leader in terms of how their people perceive them and respond to them?
Society changes all the time, and we've definitely experienced several paradigm shifts, but we truly see that people in our world today are looking for people that are the same, whether they're at home with their family, out with their friends, or in their business, or whether they're volunteering. And so being an authentic person means working towards who you are all the time and being the same with everyone. CFO of the Texas Rangers, who is a great lady. Her name is Kelly Fisher, and she said how important it is to treat an administrative assistant the same way you would a billionaire. And I think that was such wise advice, and something I think is so important that we do respect people as we move forward. And then you never know when that administrative assistant you may be working for someday, or you may be working with and on some volunteer project, and because it is amazing how small the world is.
You have a great approach to this stuff because your values and how you conduct yourself are deeply rooted in your faith. And this comes out in the book time after time. There are a lot of great verses. You quote a lot of people who have inspired you. You give a lot of people credit for the way that you've been mentored and taught. You share a lot of credit in the book. All of that humility, all of that perspective is rooted in your faith. How big a role does that play in your leadership, Mayor?
TD, it's where it all begins. And I think it's so important to, again, be authentic. And so in this book, for me to be authentic, I had to be able to share my faith. And I was very excited that Forbes said, that's great. Do it. It all begins with the faith, and that means prayer and following a set of values that are important, character values. So So yes, I am very honest about that as we go through, and I think it is at the core of why I've been successful. But I feel very strongly that I'm not the best at anything, but God has called me to be a leader, and I do value people. And then when you achieve success, you've got a lot of people there to celebrate with. But then when you fail, then you got people help pick you up,
Right.
and bring you on again so that you don't just, move into depression and don't do anything else. And that's the value of friends working together. It's also the value of faith, because I know that we're doing what God wants us to do. And he actually created us to live in community. So even the person who feels like they're the biggest introvert ever, you still need people. And in fact, some of the great introverts have been another place where we've got great ideas and some of our best workers, because they suddenly realize they get involved in working with people that, hey, even though I thought I didn't need people, I do. And it's so much better.
You mentioned when you fail, when you're in community and you fail, you have people to pick you up and dust you off. I like to pick a storyline up there and make sure I've got it right. Because if I was going to trace Mayor Williams' origins, what got him ultimately into politics, it was probably a failure that you account in the book, and that's the Johnson Creek Greenway project. If I attribute that to be where you started exploring politics, would that be correct?
Well, when I was a young man at Texas Tech, I thought I was going to pursue a life of politics. However, I think I got some very wise advice that really you want to go into business, raise your family, and see if you still have that interest. Well, I didn't have that interest at the time when Johnson Creek came along, because that's exactly what I did. I got into my business. I was enjoying engineering. We were prospering, and I love being able to build communities. And so many of our projects are building blocks for that. But let's get right to the core, TD. Johnson Creek, it was actually a project in which we were designing a greenway, a river walk. It was going to have a branch of the Smithsonian Museum in it. And we were so excited. We did the planning. We had overwhelming support here in our city. And then we started winning awards all over the country. We had a lot of great awards for the planning that we had done on that project. And then we got into the campaign, and they attached an arts referendum to the Smithsonian and Johnson Creek. And then we got some very bad political advice that said, hey, this is all so popular, you don't need to get out and talk to the people anymore. They will know what it is. And all the people were talking about was the arts referendum and how much they didn't want it. And we narrowly lost that. And TD, it plunged me into a time where I had to reassess, because here I had probably the greatest project I had ever worked on. And a lot of people that voted against it just had no idea what it was. And so from there, I said, that's never going to happen again. I said, I am going to learn myself about about the politics of getting school bond elections, city bond elections passed, and so that I don't have to rely on the advice of a political consultant. And that's exactly what I did. And then I led the next city bond election, which was during a recession, and we were able to win it. And then in 2014, I did the school bond election there, which we were in dire need in our community of school improvements. Our teachers just had such poor facilities and equipment, and something had to be done, but it ended up being a $680 million bond program. Well, that's very large. And we had trimmed it from $1 billion that we needed. But however, people from the outside even came in to try to get that defeated. But we were able to pass that bond program overwhelmingly. And it inspired my wife and I that said, hey, maybe we can make a difference. So when the leaders of our community came and asked us to run for mayor, we knew we wouldn't be alone there. And I can say we turned it down 3 times, but we felt like we had not asked God. We hadn't prayed about it. We hadn't really thought about it. And then it was amazing after we prayed about it, how doors were open to where I could go and serve as mayor. And then we ended up defeating a 12-year incumbent, which had never been done in Arlington. Well, we didn't do it. We really feel like that this was people working together there to make it happen. And
And
so
you
amazing.
and you
Go
being
ahead.
loyal, you being a loyal servant.
That's critical, TD. I am far from perfect. I'm an ordinary person that relies on the fact that I'm working every day to be a person of character. And I think that resonates with people that said, hey, Jeff's trying, he tries, but then also I'm willing to out prepare anyone. I'm going to work out. I'm going to study. I'm going to do my research, and I'm going to come up with a vision and a plan. But then I'm not satisfied with just my vision and my plan. I then go out to experts. I go out to the stakeholders. And in my business, I go to our employees here and say, look, what do you think about this? How can we improve it? And then I'm willing to use their ideas, but I also have done my homework to where I can honestly tell them that, that's not a good idea. And here's why it's not a good idea, but please don't stop bringing me ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and bring me more.
Listening to people doesn't mean you're always going to go with what they suggest, but you just illustrated it marvelously how they do feel heard. There were a lot of lessons that came from the Johnson Creek Greenway story. As soon as I read it, even before I got to the punchline right at the end and what all happened, when I read about your political consultant's advice, I thought that consultant is playing prevent defense.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
He's playing not to lose instead of playing to win, which is completely wrong. But I see as you tell the story after that, how that got you involved in kind of in doing your own thing. You're what I would call a bold leader. I've referred to you as that in casual conversations. I'm going to refer to you here on this podcast as a bold leader. And you have got some stories in the book that are about boldness. One of my favorite ones was when you invited yourself to the baseball owners event. It was like, okay, we're not invited to this, but we're going to show up, right? And it is not accidental, is it, Mayor, that the Texas Rangers are still playing ball in Arlington?
No, man, we needed a lot of help. We brought a lot of people together, but we had a solid plan that we moved out on. And in fact, every move nearly was orchestrated, because if we had lost to the Texas Rangers, it would have had economic devastation here in our city. In addition to that, they had become a fabric of our community. You talk about a morale downer. I mean, it would have plunged our city into depression. And then there are only 30 cities in America that have a Major League Baseball team. And so we knew we needed to keep it. It was there's not an option there. So we worked hard, and I knew that we needed to be bold. And I do. We had made our presentation to the Rangers. They had not shared whether or not they would stay. And then here it came an opportunity where they were going to be having a board meeting of all the Ranger owners in Arizona following a suite holders party. Well, we were suite holders, and so we invited ourselves. And I remember the city manager said, well, shouldn't we ask the Rangers if it's all right for us to come? I said, absolutely not. We have got to be there. We've got to be aggressive. There are cities all around us that want the Rangers, and they may even be there too. And we can not afford not to be there. And I don't blame the other cities for wanting them. My goodness. Sure. So we plunged out to Arizona. We did tell the Rangers the day before that we were coming. We didn't ask them. We just told them we're coming. And the two majority owners did say, hey, we'd love to meet with you that afternoon before the party that night. And we did, and we had a good meeting, but really didn't have much of a feel that we had gotten any further, because we wanted them to invite us to come to the board meeting, but they didn't. And so that night, though, at the party, here were a lot of the owners that we had not met. And we made sure that we met with every one of them that night. And we got great response. But then something else happened that we weren't expecting. The players knew about the opportunity in Arlington. And most of them were coming to us and saying, hey, we want to stay in Arlington. And that was extremely encouraging. And yet at the end of the evening, we saw the majority owners again, and they did not invite us the next day. So we thought, well, we didn't hit the home run that we thought. Well, what happened the next day is when the owners got to the other business, then Ray Davis, the managing partner of the Rangers, proposed that they vote to stay in Arlington subject to the city coming forward with what they had said they would do. And they got a unanimous vote in favor of staying in Arlington. So it paid off being bold.
You would have been right at home as a naval aviator, Mayor, because, one of our key principles is it's easier to beg forgiveness than to ask permission. So I think you
Yes.
would have stepped into it there. And forgive me for jumping around a little bit, but there's a theme here, this boldness and this competitive spirit. This wouldn't be the last time that a major contribution to the city of Arlington was in the balance competitively. Let's fast forward to the National Medal of Honor Museum. And in the book, you set the stage for this, where basically you had about 12 hours to prepare for a national level pitch. Walk us through that competition. It's a great part of the story, but I'd love to hear you recount it here.
Well, I got a call on Thursday night from one of our citizens that said that he had just heard from another one of our citizens and a Medal of Honor recipient that they had actually been looking for a city to locate the National Medal of Honor Museum. And I go, well, why aren't they going to D.C.? They said because it would take 20 years to get it done in D.C. And by then they would have lost a lot of the living Medal of Honor recipients because they were getting older. And so they had a selection committee, and they had quietly picked 20 cities to consider to be the home of the National Medal of Honor Museum. And I go, you are kidding. I said, I'm shocked that this museum hasn't been built before. This is a national museum. They're all built in D.C. Yeah. So here's an opportunity for a national museum. And they said, that's right. And he said that we think that we can get them to the site selection consultant to stay over and meet with you, because he met with Dallas, who had been one of the cities, and it wasn't a fit. Dallas wasn't excited about it. And our Medal of Honor recipient and one of our leading citizens, Sid Epps, who was head of Air Power Foundation. So he did what any good citizen would do. And then the Medal of Honor recipient believed in Arlington, and more importantly, believed in Texas. And so those two called the chairman and president of the foundation that was looking for the site and said, you guys have got to go over and meet with Arlington. And they agreed. And he said, I think I can get the mayor to meet with you if you'll stay over the next day. Needless to say, I was not kidding or clowning around at all there. I mean, you talk about getting my attention. I married into a military family, and my grandfather fought in World War II. We knew the meaning of the Medal of Honor and what it had meant to our nation. And so as soon as I got off the phone, I called our city manager. I called the Chamber of Commerce president and said, hey, guys, we have got to get ready because they're coming tomorrow. I told them to please come as late as you can in the day, because I knew we were going to prepare for getting that done. And we stayed up through the night, but it was still very possible that we were able to do what we did because we had gone after Amazon's headquarters, the HQ2. And we knew it was a long shot, but we did make the final list. But anyway, ultimately, they picked the wrong Arlington. They picked Arlington, Virginia, not Arlington, Texas. But yet we had all of this information. We had all of the data that we needed. So we were ready. But TD, probably the most important thing when we started in on this is that we were a team that was united. We were a team that trusted each other. We knew what each one of us could do and where to go. And so, sure, we got ready for that pitch, to share with them why Arlington would be a great host city for the National Medal of Honor Museum. It helped us prepare for the 6-month journey ahead. And so we didn't just get put into the mix after that one meeting. We had a series, 2 weeks of questionnaires, and then they told us they were coming to town for a reception. and that they told us exactly what we had to prepare. Well, that's where this team of ours came in. We had a team ready to go, and we ended up expanding to all of North Texas, ultimately to Texas, to be able to bring this museum here.
Yeah, and that wasn't a cakewalk. You had some pretty stiff competition from a pretty celebrity-laden Denver team, didn't you?
We did. And, at first there were several: San Diego, Nashville, Kansas City. There were a lot of great cities involved. But as we advanced through, it became very evident that Denver was the inside choice. And we go, why Denver? So we did a little intelligence, just like the naval intelligence would, huh?
Right.
And we found out that the two guys behind all of this were Peter Coors, and he had assembled quite a list of businesses that were after it. And then they had Peyton Manning. And oh my goodness, it's interesting. People do business with people. And when you've got two outstanding individuals like that, it made all the sense of why they were considering Denver. We needed to counter that. And so for us, there was no doubt who would counter Peyton Manning, and that was Roger Staubach, America's quarterback, a man that graduated from the Naval Academy, a great businessman. And so we brought him in, and he was fantastic, talking to the people about North Texas and the business opportunities. And then to counter the businesses, I said, well, we're going to go on volume. We're not going to take this because that was our big advantage. We could overwhelm Colorado with the businesses that we had, and BNSF, Lockheed, it was D.R. Horton, their Fortune 500 company. The list went on. And certainly we showcased them in dinners and receptions as the committee came in, because literally they were in town every other week. It was a marathon 6 months, but ultimately it came down to us in Denver.
And Arlington, Texas wins. As a career military officer, the Medal of Honor has always played a big part in how I inspire my team. When we did quarters, quarters is the big gathering of all the military and civilian personnel on the base here, I would begin every single one of those by reading a Medal of Honor citation. And many of them I had a hard time getting through, without being kind of overcome with emotion at the valor and the courage displayed in them. And you talk about in your book how you've got to meet a lot of these recipients of the Medal of Honor, and how they're very humble people who tell you that they were just soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines responding with the training they had in unusual circumstances. That's a pretty poignant part of the book, and it seems to have made a big impression on you, the way you include it prominently in the Unity Blueprint.
TD, I've got a great story there behind that of what happened for us. That they met with us and said, hey, we'll give you a chance, but we're not putting you in the final 10 yet. We need to do that reception. Well, they told us, we're going to bring 3 Medal of Honor recipients to that reception, and we want you to bring leaders from North Texas, and we certainly expect you to have a lot from Arlington there. Well, in that reception, we heard the inspiring story of each one of these Medal of Honor recipients. But then we saw their heart of how they would talk about they were ordinary people that chose courage and made that decision. And then they told us that we want to accomplish more after we receive the medal than we did before. And that involves inspiring America to adopt character values of integrity, sacrifice, courage, commitment, citizenship, and patriotism. Well, after they finished talking, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. And Kay Dugan, who is one of our leaders here in Tarrant County and has done so much, who is not an emotional lady, she came over to me in tears and said, Mayor, this museum deserves to be in Arlington. We've got to do everything we can to bring it here. We are the right place. And I said, Kay, I feel the same way, and I think everybody in here is. So we want this to be coming to Texas. Yeah. And we did it. Everybody worked hard.
And it is absolutely beautiful and an incredibly moving experience. This book is going to do a lot of things for a lot of people. It's going to repaint in your mind how municipal elected leadership works and how it should work, at least, right? What a real, true servant leader does in office. It's going to introduce people to an incredible story of Arlington, nestled between the metropolises of Dallas and Fort Worth, and how it happens that the Dallas Cowboys don't play football in Dallas. They play in Arlington. The Texas Rangers play in Arlington. The Medal of Honor Museum is in Arlington. I mean, all the stories of your developments of Levitt Pavilion and the things that are in this book, they're very inspirational. And I just want to take this moment to say thanks for sharing them with us. Thanks for giving us a glimpse beyond the curtain of all the conversations that went on and all the decisions and all the heartache and all the love that played into making Arlington what it is today. I think it's going to make people want to get on a plane, come visit Arlington, because there's a lot there to see. So, Mayor, last word to you. The book is called The Unity Blueprint. How do we get hold of it, and what can you tell folks about it?
Well, we're very excited, TD. It's on sale at Amazon. And in fact, in our pre-sales, we've already made #1 bestseller in several categories. And so I would encourage you to look for The Unity Blueprint by W. Jeff Williams. And you should find it easily, and you can order the book. And then in addition to that, you can also go to our website, which is wjeffwilliams.com, and find out more and see what is happening now, because we are on a mission to really spread the importance of unity and the importance of leaders to adopt character values and to make a plan. And then isn't it interesting, TD, how a paradigm shift is happening. And in our society today, we have to treat people like we do our volunteers at United Way. We have to include them. We have to make them feel special. And then we need to also let them know the why. We don't just tell them because I told you so. Here's the why, because we are doing great things. And so it's an exciting time, and I look forward to people learning the value of unity.
Well, this book is definitely laying it out very clearly for you. I recommend you run and get a copy. I got to ask you, Mayor, and I should know this already, but is there an audio version?
There will be. It is going to be coming out in about 2 months. Forbes, who published our book, really likes that to be two different occurrences. And looking forward to that. And then something that I didn't know is that Forbes encouraged me to read the book myself on the audio book. They said that it has really helped a lot of books, because people actually hear directly from the author what they're thinking and why.
I agree 100%. And I can't wait to hear you read it, because it's going to reflect a lot of the stories that you just told on this podcast. Mayor, I'm looking forward to seeing you the next time our paths cross. And I just want to thank you for spending some time with me today and the folks that are listening to this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, TD. And thank you for being a leader that believes in unity.
Thanks for listening in to this episode of No Cliches. For visual stuff like links, texts, and pics, visit aboldleader.com and look for the banner at the top of the page. I'd also like to know what you think at aboldleader.com. I'm TD Smyers, and I look forward to having you back.